Richard Ellis here with columnist Bob Robb, and you have waded into the apparently legitimate draft leaked opinion of the Supreme Court as they're deciding the abortion issue. Looks like they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. There's a lot to unpack here that the column does. Let's start with the fear that this decision could also affect other rights not explicitly laid out in the Constitution, like gay marriage.
Well, let me begin by saying I think that there is some legitimate concern about that. I am pro-life, and I believe that this draft decision correctly exits the Supreme Court from the issue of abortion and gives it over to the legislative branches, and in Arizona also the prospect of an initiative. But the part of the draft that tries to say abortion is different, and what we are finding to overturn Roe and Casey doesn't set a precedent in itself to overturn other decisions like the gay marriage decision is not wholly convincing because the constitutional infirmities that are asserted in Roe and Casey also exist in those other decisions. I do believe that there's a firm declaration by the purported majority of the court that they don't plan to go any further, that they see abortion as different and distinct, and without the staying power of a precedent that some of the other decisions, such as gay marriage, has shown. So while I believe the court is making a direct declaration that it plans to go no further, the criticism from the left that the rationale that underlies the decision could also be applied in other circumstances, I think is a fair concern.
Right, but for the foreseeable future, you're seeing that these are the people who would be making that decision, and we have to believe that they're taken at their word. And speaking of taking them at their word, you also are critical of what some of these judges said during their confirmation hearings about how firm Roe and Casey were as decisions.
Another reaction and criticism from pro-choice advocates and critics of the decision that I think is valid is that during the confirmation process, the three new conservative justices, I think either cultivated or at least allowed to be inferred a conclusion that if they were confirmed, overturning Roe and Casey was highly unlikely. They never said that they wouldn't overturn Roe and Casey, and judges shouldn't talk about what they're going to do in future cases. But there was a strong stress by all three of them about Roe and Casey being long-standing precedent. And I think certainly the impression was created and properly inferred that Roe and Casey were unlikely to be overturned. So I do believe that criticism is also has some validity to it.
But the one criticism of the decision you don't agree with, Bob, is people saying this is minority winning or anti-democratic. You say it actually puts the power back to the people.
Yes, I find that a curious objection, and the citing of polls to say what justices of the Supreme Court should do about constitutional issues to be odd. This decision doesn't say that the Constitution protects unborn life in the womb and that states have no ability to permit the termination of a pregnancy by abortion. And in fact, it doesn't even say that there's any restrictions on how permissive abortion rights can be in the states or at any stage of the pregnancy. It completely turns it over to the democratic processes. And I find interesting the fact that in Europe it was decided through democratic processes. And where Europe ended up seems to be where the American people are, which is keeping abortion legal, but subjecting it to more conditions and restrictions than have been permitted under the Casey decision. That is where the abortion policy is settled there, and there wasn't a judge involved. It was all done through the democratic process. It'll be messy from this point forward if this decision holds, because the democratic process is messy. But I think it will give everybody a greater sense of having a say in the outcome. And it will be decided not by 9 justices, but by whatever majority exists in the legislature or in Arizona, probably through some kind of initiative.
And one surprising thing that we won't have time to fully get into in the column was the first line, where it seems like you were partially inspired by reading a letter to the editor. So someone is reading those letters. Keep them coming in.